Admiral Thexvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the data streams flow across the holographic displays. His reptilian eyes studied the information with growing satisfaction. After months of careful observation, the Velkari Empire had finally found what they were looking for, a species so weak that conquest would be effortless. The bridge crew worked quietly around him, their scaled hands moving across control panels. The Velkari had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy. Each time they followed the same pattern: watch, learn, attack, and absorb. It had never failed them before. "Admiral," called Commander Zethkul from his station, "the long-range scanners have completed their analysis of the human colonies." Thexvar turned his massive head toward his second-in-command. "What do our sensors tell us about these creatures?" Zethkul touched his control panel, and images appeared in the air above them. The first image showed a human male walking through what appeared to be a settlement. He was small by Velkari standards, with no visible weapons or armor. His skin looked soft and thin, nothing like the tough scales that protected Velkari warriors. "This creature is called Hyanwu Park," Zethkul explained. "Our translation systems indicate he leads one of their mining colonies. Watch this recording." The image moved, showing Hyunwoo picking up a much smaller human. The tiny creature wrapped its arms around his neck and made sounds that the translation system labeled as laughter. Hyunwoo carried the small human on his back, spinning in circles while it continued making happy noises. Thexvar felt his throat pouch expand with amusement. He wasted energy on a useless activity with an even smaller, weaker creature. "What purpose does this serve?" "Our xenobiologists believe the smaller humans are their offspring," Zethkul replied. "All adult humans seem to spend significant time caring for these young ones instead of training for combat or expanding their territory." Another image appeared, showing a female human tending to small green plants in the ground. She moved slowly and carefully, using tiny tools to help the plants grow. Her name appeared on the screen: Da-Yun Kim. "She grows food," Zethkul continued. "But look at how she does it. No machinery, no efficiency. She touches each plant individually and appears to enjoy the process." Thexvar watched Da-Yun smile as she worked with her plants. Among the Velkari, food production was handled by machines and specialized worker castes. No warrior would waste time on such tasks. "Show me their military," Thexvar commanded. The images changed to show another human, this one named Boram Lee. She wore what appeared to be a uniform and carried some kind of weapon. But even this supposed warrior looked weak to Velkari eyes. She was smaller than the males, with no natural armor or claws. "This is their head of security for the mining colony," Zethkul said. "Watch what she does during her duty shift." The recording showed Boram walking through the colony, greeting other humans with smiles and friendly gestures. She helped an elderly human carry heavy boxes. She spent time talking with children, even showing them how her weapon worked in what appeared to be a game. "Their military leader plays with offspring and helps the weak," Thexvar observed. "Among our people, such behavior would be seen as a sign of mental deficiency." "It gets worse, Admiral," Zethkul said. "Look at this." The next recording showed humans from multiple colonies gathering together for what their communications called a meal. They sat in groups, sharing food and making the sounds they called conversation. Many touched each other frequently, placing hands on shoulders, embracing, and engaging in physical contact that served no obvious purpose. "They gather in large numbers without establishing dominance hierarchies," Zethkul explained. "No challenges, no displays of strength, no territorial marking. They simply exist together peacefully." Thexvar felt a deep satisfaction building in his chest. In his long career, he had never encountered prey this perfectly suited for conquest. Most species required careful planning and significant military force to subdue. The humans appeared to lack every quality that made a species dangerous. "What about their technology?" Thexvar asked. "Primitive but adequate," Zethkul replied. "They have spaceflight and basic energy weapons, but nothing that could threaten our fleet. Their ships appear designed for transportation and exploration, rather than warfare. Most importantly, Admiral, they seem to avoid conflict entirely." New images showed human ships encountering alien vessels from other species. In every case, the humans tried to communicate peacefully. When faced with aggression, they retreated rather than fight. Their communications were filled with words about diplomatic solutions and peaceful coexistence. "They run from conflict," Thexvar said. his satisfaction growing. Show me their response to the Zephyrian border dispute. The recording showed human ships withdrawing from a disputed system when the Zephyrians demanded it. The humans sent messages expressing their desire to avoid unnecessary violence and their hope for future friendship. Zethkul's throat pouch expanded with amusement. Admiral, I have never seen a species so perfectly designed for conquest. They are weak, peaceful, and seemingly incapable of effective resistance. Their emotional attachment to their offspring will make them surrender quickly to protect the young ones. Thexvar moved to the star chart showing human space. 3 colonies glowed on the display: the mining station where Hyunwoo lived, an agricultural world called New Jeju, and a trading hub named Titan's Gate. Together, they controlled some of the richest resources the Valkyrie had ever discovered. How many humans inhabit these colonies? Thexvar asked. Approximately 1.5 million total, Zethkul answered. The mining colony has 50,000. The agricultural world has 200,000, and the trading hub has over 1 million. And their military forces? Minimal, Admiral. Each colony has what they call security personnel. But our analysis shows these are primarily concerned with accident prevention and crowd control. We detected no significant weapons manufacturing, no military academies, and no evidence of strategic planning for large-scale warfare. Thexvar studied the data one final time. Everything confirmed what he hoped to find: a weak species with valuable resources, no military tradition, and a psychology that made them natural prey. Begin preparations for invasion, he commanded. Deploy the standard conquest protocol. 3 battle groups, 1 for each colony. We will give them our usual ultimatum: surrender and serve the Empire, or face destruction. Admiral, Zethkul said with confidence, based on their behavior patterns, I estimate they will surrender within hours of our arrival. They lack the mental framework for sustained resistance. Thexvar felt pride swell in his chest. This would be the easiest conquest in Valkyrie history. Soon human space would belong to the Empire, and these weak emotional creatures would serve as perfect laborers for Valkyrie expansion. He turned to address his bridge crew. Send the signal to the fleet. We move toward human space immediately. By the time their sun set again, 3 new worlds will bow before Valkyrie's strength. As his flagship began moving toward human territory, Thexvar allowed himself to imagine the glory this conquest would bring him. The humans had made it so easy. Their very nature worked against them. Soon the galaxy would see what happened to species that chose gentleness over strength. The Valkyrie fleet moved through space toward their destiny, confident in their superiority and certain of their victory. The Valkyrie war fleet dropped out of hyperspace in 3 different locations simultaneously. Admiral Thexvar had planned the attack perfectly. His forces would strike all 3 major human colonies at once, preventing them from coordinating any kind of defense. On the bridge of his flagship, Thexvar watched as his battle groups took their positions. The mining colony of Kepler 442b hung in space before them, its industrial platforms and habitat rings looking fragile in the starlight. Begin standard conquest protocol, Thexvar ordered. Broadcast our demands on all frequencies. Commander Zethkul activated the communication system. His voice echoed across space, reaching every human receiver in the system. Attention, inhabitants of this world. You are now subjects of the Valkyrie Empire. Surrender immediately and prepare for Imperial rule. Resistance is futile. Comply or face total destruction. Thexvar expected immediate panic. Previous species had responded to this ultimatum with frantic communications, desperate attempts to negotiate, or occasionally with hopeless military mobilization. The humans did none of these things. Instead, something unexpected happened. The colony's communication channels filled with calm, organized voices. Humans began moving with purpose throughout their facilities, but there was no panic, no screaming, no chaos. Admiral, the communications officer reported, they are responding to our ultimatum. Excellent, Thexvar said. Are they surrendering? Not exactly, sir. They are evacuating non-essential personnel and requesting a diplomatic meeting. Thexvar felt confused. Evacuation meant they expected violence, but diplomatic requests suggested they still hope to avoid it. Show me what they are doing. The main screen displayed images from the colony's surface. Humans moved through corridors and chambers with remarkable organization. Adults guided children toward what appeared to be escape ships. Elderly humans followed evacuation routes marked with clear signs. Everyone moved quickly but without panic. At the center of this activity was Hyunwoo Park, the colony administrator they had observed during their reconnaissance. But something was different now. The gentle male who had played with children and smiled at his neighbors was giving orders with quiet authority. His voice carried clearly over the communication channels. Transport 7 is loaded and ready for departure, Hyunwoo said into his communication device. Boram, what's the status on the mining equipment shutdown? All fusion reactors are in safe mode, came the reply from Boram Lee, their supposed head of security. Industrial lasers are secured. We're ready to implement emergency protocols. Thexvar found this response puzzling. Why are they securing their industrial equipment? Do they think we want to use it? Zethkul studied the displays. Perhaps they fear accidental damage during the occupation, Admiral. Meanwhile, similar scenes played out at the other two colonies. On New Jeju, the agricultural world, humans worked together to evacuate children and elderly residents while the adults remained behind. The colony's communications showed a male named Minho Choi coordinating the evacuation with the same calm efficiency. At Titan's Gate, the trading hub, over 1 million humans organized themselves into evacuation groups while a female named Sujin Yang managed communication between all three colonies under attack. They are coordinating between colonies, Zethkul observed, but not for military purposes. They seem to be sharing evacuation procedures and civilian safety information. What bothered Thexvar most was the lack of fear. When the Velkari had conquered the Rigelian Republic, the aliens had broadcast desperate pleas for mercy. The Andromedans had attempted hopeless last stands that ended in glorious defeat. The humans simply prepared. Admiral, the tactical officer announced, the humans have launched multiple civilian transports from all three colonies. Should we intercept them? Thexvar considered this. Destroying fleeing civilians would send a strong message about Velkari power, but it might also eliminate valuable workers. Let them go. We want the colonies intact, and some of their population may prove useful. As the civilian ships departed, something changed in the colonies. The remaining humans, now only adults, began moving with different purpose. Equipment that had been secured was now being accessed again. The industrial mining lasers on Kepler 442b came back online, but they were being moved to new positions. Sir, the communications officer said, sounding confused. The humans are sending us another message. Put it through. Hyunwoo Park's voice came over the communication system as calm as before. Velkari Fleet, this is Administrator Park of Kepler 442b mining colony. Your ultimatum has been received and logged. Please be advised that all non-combatant personnel have been evacuated as per Terran defense protocols. Any further hostile action will be met with appropriate response. Have a pleasant day. Thexvar stared at the screen. Did he just wish us well while refusing to surrender? Before anyone could answer, similar messages came from the other colonies. Minho Choi from New Jeju spoke with the tone of someone discussing weather conditions. New Jeju Agricultural Collective acknowledges Velkari invasion notice. Civilian evacuation complete. Colony defense systems are now active. We hope you reconsider your current course of action. Sujin Yang from Titan's Gate was equally polite. Titan's Gate Trade Center has received your conquest demand. All civilian transports have cleared the system. We are now operating under emergency military protocols. Thank you for your patience during this transition. Emergency military protocols? Zethkul repeated. Admiral, our intelligence showed no evidence of military infrastructure in these colonies. Begin landing operations, Thexvar commanded. Whatever these protocols are, they cannot be significant. Deploy ground forces to all three colonies. The Velkari assault ships launched from the main fleet, carrying troops trained in urban combat and civilian control. Thexvar watched the first wave approach Kepler 442b, confident that the humans would surrender once they saw armed Velkari warriors. The mining colony's defenses opened fire when the assault ships entered weapons range. But these were not the weak energy weapons the Velkari expected. Industrial mining lasers designed to cut through solid rock sliced through Velkari armor like it was made of paper. Sir, the tactical officer shouted, we're taking heavy casualties. Those aren't military weapons, they're mining equipment modified for combat. On the screen, Thexavar watched as Da-Un Kim, the gentle female who had tended plants, operated a massive mining laser with deadly precision. She moved with practiced efficiency, targeting Velkari ships with mechanical calm. Similar reports came from the other colonies. Minho Choi's farmers on New Jeju had turned agricultural machinery into weapons of war. Harvesting equipment became mobile guns, and irrigation systems now carried chemicals that ate through Velkari battle armor. At Titan's Gate, trading equipment had been converted into defensive systems. Cargo loaders threw heavy containers at landing craft, while civilian traders used personal sidearms with surprising accuracy. "Admiral," Zethkul said, his voice shaking. "The humans are fighting back, but this isn't possible. Our intelligence showed they were peaceful, weak creatures." Thexvar watched his assault forces struggle against human defenses. The creatures who had seemed so gentle were now fighting with coordinated efficiency. Worse, they showed no fear. When Velkari troops managed to land, humans met them with improvised weapons and tactical knowledge that shouldn't have existed in civilian populations. "Get me more information," Thexvar ordered. "What are we missing about these humans?" The answer came when intercepted human communications revealed the truth. Boram Lee's voice echoed across the mining colony's channels. "All veterans, remember your training. Standard Urban Defense Pattern 7. Watch your crossfire. Civilian infrastructure is still valuable. Veterans." The word made Thexvar's blood run cold. "Sir," the intelligence officer said, checking his records frantically, "it appears we missed something important about human society. According to these new scans, every adult human has completed something called mandatory service in their military forces." Thexkul turned to stare at his admiral. "You mean every adult human is a trained soldier?" "It gets worse," the intelligence officer continued. "Their civilian jobs are all secondary occupations. Hyunwoo Park is listed as a former Terran Marines captain. Daeun Kim served in their engineering corps. Minho Choi was a full colonel in their ground forces." Thexvar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades of warfare: genuine concern. The weak, peaceful creatures were revealing themselves to be an entire population of experienced military personnel who had been pretending to be harmless civilians, as his forces continued to take casualties from modified industrial equipment and farmers who fought like seasoned warriors. Admiral Thexvar began to suspect that the Velkari Empire had made a terrible mistake. The humans weren't showing their true nature during peacetime. They had been hiding their capabilities behind a mask of gentleness in civilian life. Now that mask was coming off, and what lay beneath was far more dangerous than anything in the Velkari's military experience. The Velkari ground forces had been on the human colonies for 6 hours, and Admiral Thexvar was beginning to understand the full scope of their mistake. What had seemed like 3 easy targets were turning into death traps engineered by an entire species of hidden warriors. On Kepler 442b, Commander Raxtalk's voice crackled over the communication system from his position inside the mining colony. "Admiral, the humans are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They use their industrial equipment like weapons, but with military precision we have never seen in civilian populations." Thexvar studied the tactical displays showing his forces' positions. Red markers indicated Velkari casualties, and there were far too many of them. "Explain what you mean, Commander." "Sir, watch this recording from my helmet camera," Raxtalk replied. The screen showed the interior of the mining colony. Velkari soldiers moved through a corridor, their weapons ready. Suddenly, the walls erupted with precise laser fire, but these weren't random attacks. The humans had calculated exactly where to hit to disable Velkari armor, without damaging the colony's life support systems. Daeun Kim appeared in the recording, moving between control panels with mechanical efficiency. She operated multiple mining lasers simultaneously, switching between targets with the skill of a trained artillery specialist. When Velkari soldiers tried to flank her position, she triggered a carefully placed explosion that collapsed part of the tunnel, but only the part that blocked the enemy advance, leaving her own escape route intact. "The female who was gardening," Raxtalk's voice continued over the recording. "She knows exactly how to use industrial chemicals as weapons. My troops report that she has turned the colony's air recycling system into a delivery method for combat drugs. Our soldiers are experiencing enhanced human reflexes and tactical awareness among the defenders." Thexvar felt his throat pouch constrict with worry. "Combat drugs?" Our intelligence indicated humans avoided chemical enhancement. Not anymore, sir. And it gets worse. The colony administrator, Hyunwoo Park, is coordinating defensive operations while simultaneously managing evacuation of wounded defenders to secured areas. He is conducting warfare while maintaining care for his own people. This level of multitasking should not be possible. Similar reports came from New Jeju. The agricultural colony had transformed overnight from peaceful farms into a military fortress. Min Ho Choi, the supposed farmer, had organized the colonists into disciplined military units that used their knowledge of the terrain to devastating effect. Sujin Yang's voice came over the communication system from Titan's gate. She was speaking to both other colonies, coordinating their defense with the efficiency of a trained military communications specialist. Kepler 442b, your mining laser modifications are working well. New Jeju. The chemical approach is highly effective. I'm sharing tactical data between all three colonies. Admiral, Sethkul said, his voice tight with concern. The humans are sharing information between colonies in real time. They are fighting 3 separate battles as if it were one coordinated campaign. But what truly disturbed Thexvar was not just their military competence, it was their psychological profile. The gentle, caring creatures they had observed were still there, but now they were caring for each other while methodically destroying Velkari forces. A new recording came from the surface of New Jeju. It showed human defenders who had been wounded in combat. Instead of being removed from battle, they were being treated by other colonists who continued fighting while providing medical care. A human who could barely walk was still operating defensive systems while another human bandaged his injuries. They do not abandon their wounded, Commander Velthar reported from New Jeju. But neither do they retreat from combat to care for them. They simply do both simultaneously. My troops are facing enemies who show no fear of death but also refuse to leave injured comrades behind. Thexvar watched recordings of humans who had been backed into impossible tactical situations. Instead of surrendering or fleeing, they smiled at each other, said words that the translation system marked as expressions of affection, and then executed combat maneuvers that resulted in Velkari casualties even when the humans died in the process. Sir, the intelligence officer reported, we are intercepting human communications that suggest they view this battle as enjoyable. What do you mean? Listen to this recording from Jaewon Nam, a trader on Titan's Gate. The audio played over the bridge speakers. Jaewon's voice was calm and almost cheerful. Boram, your laser modifications worked perfectly. 3 Velkari vehicles down. Dayun, the chemical combinations you suggested are very effective. I haven't had this much fun since the Centauri border conflicts. Thexvar felt a chill run through his scales. They are enjoying combat? It appears so, Admiral. And there's something else. We have been monitoring their personal communications during battle. They frequently tell each other things like stay safe and see you for dinner, even while engaging in deadly combat. More recordings played. Human defenders saying goodbye to their families over communication systems, then immediately returning to battle with what the translation system indicated were smiles on their faces. Others shared food with wounded comrades between combat operations. Admiral, Sethkul said quietly, I think we misunderstood what we were seeing during our reconnaissance. Explain. The caring behavior, the gentleness, the peaceful activities, we interpreted these as signs of weakness. But now I think they were signs of what humans are fighting to protect. They are not weak because they care for each other. They are dangerous because they care for each other. As if to prove this point, new reports came from all 3 colonies. Human defenders were fighting with increasing intensity as the battle continued. But their tactics were not becoming more desperate. They were becoming more creative and more coordinated. Hyunwoo Park's voice came over intercepted communications. All stations, remember that our families are watching from the evacuation ships. Let's make sure they have a home to come back to. The response from the other colonists was immediate. Defensive operations that had been merely effective became absolutely devastating. Humans began taking tactical risks that no sane military force would attempt. But they succeeded because they coordinated these risks with mathematical precision. Da-Yun Kim triggered a massive explosion in the mining colony's lower levels, collapsing several tunnels filled with Velkari troops. But she had calculated their structural damage exactly, the colony's main habitat. Areas remained intact while the lower military levels became a tomb for the invaders. Min Ho Choi organized his farmers into hunting parties that used their knowledge of New Jeju's terrain to isolate and destroy Valkyrie units piecemeal. But between combat operations, the same humans continued maintaining the agricultural systems that would feed their families when they returned. At Titan's Gate, J1 Nam coordinated with other traders to use cargo handling equipment as weapons, but they did so while maintaining the trading systems that connected their community to the rest of human space. Admiral, Commander Raxtok reported from inside Kepler 442b, "I request permission to withdraw my forces. We are not facing a civilian population that can be conquered. We are facing a military force that happens to live in civilian facilities." Thexvar looked at the tactical displays. His 3 battle groups were taking heavy casualties. His ground forces were trapped in facilities designed by the defenders, and the humans showed no signs of weakening. Worse, they were still coordinating between colonies as if distance meant nothing. "Sir," the communications officer announced, "we are detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of all 3 systems." "Reinforcements?" Thexvar asked hopefully. "No, sir. The signatures are not Valkyrie. They appear to be human ships, a lot of them." Thexvar felt his confidence finally collapse completely. The humans had been fighting a delaying action while calling for help. But if their civilians were this dangerous, what would their actual military be like? As warning alarms began sounding throughout the Valkyrie fleet, Admiral Thexvar realized that his forces were no longer conducting an invasion. They were trapped in a carefully prepared ambush, created by a species that had spent months allowing themselves to be studied and underestimated. The humans had been waiting for them. The hyperspace signatures resolved into ships, more ships than Admiral Thexvar had ever seen in one place. The Terran Defense Force fleet that dropped into normal space around the 3 besieged colonies was not just large, it was massive beyond anything the Valkyrie intelligence had suggested was possible. "Admiral," the sensor operator reported, his voice shaking, "I count over 300 ships, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, carriers, and vessel types our databases cannot identify." Thexvar stared at the tactical display in growing horror. The human fleet had not arrived as scattered reinforcements responding to an emergency. They had arrived as a coordinated armada, with formation patterns that indicated months of planning. "How long have they been preparing for this?" he whispered. His answer came when the communication channels filled with human voices, but these were not the gentle, peaceful tones they had monitored during their reconnaissance. These voices carried the cold precision of professional military personnel who had been waiting for exactly this situation. "Valkyrie Fleet. This is Admiral Wu Jin Kang, commanding the Terran Defense Force Response Fleet." The voice was calm, polite, and absolutely terrifying in its certainty. "You have 30 minutes to withdraw all forces from Terran space. This is not a negotiation. This is a courtesy notification of your impending destruction." Thexvar felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Response Fleet? How long have they known we were coming?" Commander Zethkul checked his instruments frantically. "Sir, these ships—" "They were already in motion before we began our attack. Some of these vessels started moving toward this location over a week ago." The implications hit Thexvar like a physical blow. The humans had known about the invasion before it began. The gentle colonists, the peaceful activities, the apparent weakness, all of it had been carefully designed to lure the Valkyrie into a trap. "Open communication with the human admiral," Thexvar ordered. "Perhaps we can negotiate a withdrawal, Admiral Kang. This is Admiral Thexvar of the Valkyrie Imperial Fleet. We are prepared to discuss terms for our withdrawal from this system." The response came immediately, and it chilled Thexvar's blood. "Admiral Thexvar, there are no terms. You attacked civilian colonies. You threatened human families. Your 30 minutes began when I finished speaking." Before Thexvar could respond, another voice joined the communication channel. This one carried a personal fury that made it even more frightening than the professional calm of Admiral Kang. "Valkyrie Commander, this is Captain Insu Park of the Dreadnought Soul's Fury. You have my brother's colony under siege. I strongly recommend you begin withdrawing immediately." Thexvar checked his intelligence files quickly. Yunwu Park, the colony administrator, had a brother in the Terran military, but the files had listed him as a simple ship captain, not the commander of what appeared to be a massive warship. How many of your people did we underestimate? Thexvar asked quietly. His answer came as the human fleet began moving into attack formations. The coordination was flawless, 300 ships moving as one unified force, with each vessel taking predetermined positions that created overlapping fields of fire around the Velkari fleet. Sir, the tactical officer reported, they are not surrounding us. They are creating a formation designed to prevent any of our ships from escaping. Commander Zethkul studied the sensor readings. Admiral, their formation includes gaps that appear to be escape routes, but those gaps are covered by concentrated firepower. If we try to flee through them, it would be suicide, Thexvar finished. The communication channels crackled again, and this time the voice belonged to a female officer. All Velkari forces, this is Commander Hyrin Yoon, fighter wing leader. Be advised that my pilots have volunteered for special missions in case your ships attempt to escape. We will be conducting close-range intercepts. Thexvar did not need to ask what close-range intercepts meant. The humans were prepared to ram his ships if necessary, to prevent them from leaving the system. 25 minutes remaining, Admiral Kang announced. Thexvar made his decision. All ships prepare for emergency hyperspace jump. We cannot fight this fleet. Sir, the navigation officer reported. They have deployed some kind of hyperspace interdiction field. We cannot jump to faster than light speeds. The trap was complete. The Velkari fleet was surrounded, outnumbered, and prevented from fleeing. But what terrified Thexvar most was not the tactical situation. It was the tone of the human communications. The colonists they had been fighting had shown emotion during combat. They had cared for their wounded, expressed concern for their families, and maintained their connections to each other even while fighting. The Terran Defense Force showed no such emotions. They communicated with the cold efficiency of professionals who had reduced the coming battle to a mathematical problem that they intended to solve permanently. 15 minutes. Admiral Kang announced. Thexvar tried one more time. Admiral Kang, surely we can reach some accommodation. The Velkari Empire controls significant territory. We could offer trade agreements, territorial concessions. Admiral Thexvar, came the reply. You misunderstand the situation. We are not interested in accommodations. We are interested in ensuring that no Velkari force ever threatens human civilians again. The most effective way to achieve this goal is to make certain that no Velkari involved in this attack survives to report our capabilities to your empire. The words hit Thexvar like ice water. The humans were not planning to defeat the Velkari fleet. They were planning to annihilate it completely. 10 minutes. Captain Insu Park's voice joined the communication channel again. Velkari forces on Kepler 442b. You have been fighting my brother's people for 18 hours. They tell me you have been using weapons against civilian infrastructure. This was a poor decision on your part. Thexvar watched his tactical display as human ships moved into final attack positions. The dreadnought Soul's Fury positioned itself directly between the Velkari fleet and the mining colony, as if Captain Park was personally ensuring that no additional harm could come to his brother's home. 5 minutes. Commander Hyrin Yoon's fighter squadrons launched from their carriers. But instead of forming defensive patrols, they took positions that would allow them to pursue any Velkari ship that might somehow escape the coming battle. Sir, Zethkul said quietly, our ground forces are requesting evacuation. The colonial defenders have stopped fighting. What do you mean, stopped fighting? They have withdrawn to defensive positions and are no longer engaging our troops. It's as if they are waiting for something. Thexvar understood. The colonists had been buying time, holding the Velkari ground forces in place until the fleet arrived. Now they were letting the professionals take over. 2 minutes. Admiral Kang's voice carried across space one final time. Admiral Thexvar, you have attacked our families, our homes, and our way of life. We take these things very personally. In 60 seconds, you will discover why no species in this galaxy attacks human civilian populations twice. Thexvar looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all experienced warriors who had participated in dozens of conquests. All of them showed the same expression of dawning horror as they realized what was about to happen. 1 minute. The countdown continued with mechanical precision. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Time expired, Admiral Kang announced. The human fleet opened fire with coordinated precision that turned space into a storm of energy beams and projectile weapons. But this was not random destruction. Every shot was calculated for maximum effectiveness against Velkari shield technology and armor specifications. Thexvar realized, as his flagship's shields failed under the concentrated bombardment, that the humans had been studying Velkari military capabilities just as carefully as the Velkari had been studying human civilian behavior. The difference was that the humans had understood exactly what they were looking at. As explosions rocked his ship and damage reports flooded his communication system, Admiral Thexvar finally understood the terrible truth. The Velkari Empire had not invaded 3 weak colonies defended by gentle civilians. They had attacked the families of an entire species of warriors who had been waiting patiently for someone to make exactly this mistake. 6 months after the failed invasion, Admiral Thexvar sat in a chair that was too small for his large frame, in a room painted in soft colors that hurt his eyes. The Terran detention facility on Luna Base looked nothing like a Velkari prison. There were no chains, no guards with weapons, no displays of power designed to break the spirit of captives. Instead, there were books, comfortable furniture, and large windows that showed the Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. It was the most psychologically disturbing prison Thexvar had ever experienced. "Good morning, Admiral," said Dr. Yoonji Seo as she entered the room. She carried a cup of something that smelled pleasant and a datapad filled with information. Her voice was gentle, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its calm friendliness. Thexvar had been meeting with Dr. Seo for 3 months now. She never threatened him, never showed anger, never displayed any of the behaviors he expected from an interrogator. Instead, she asked questions, showed him videos, and explained things with the patience of a teacher instructing a slow student. "Today I want to show you something special," Dr. Seo said, settling into her chair across from him. "These are recordings from the memorial services we held for our people who died defending their homes." The wall screen activated, showing images that made Thexvar's throat pouch constrict with confusion. Humans gathered in large groups, but instead of celebrating victory or demanding revenge, they were grieving. Adults held small children while tears ran down their faces. Elderly humans placed flowers on graves while speaking quietly about the people who had died. 847 civilians and military personnel died during your invasion, Dr. Seo explained. Each one of them had families, friends, and communities that cared about them. "Watch this." The screen showed Hyunwoo Park, the colony administrator who had coordinated the defense of the mining station. He stood beside a grave marker, holding his young daughter while she placed a small flower on the stone. "Uncle Minho liked to grow vegetables," the child said in the recording. "He taught me how to plant seeds. Daddy says he won't come back, but his vegetables will grow every year." Dr. Seo paused the recording. "Minho Choi died in the final defense of New Jeju, when your ground forces made their last attack on the agricultural center. He was protecting the colony's seed bank, genetic material for crops that feed millions of humans across dozens of worlds." Thexvar stared at the screen. "He died for plants?" "He died protecting the future of human civilization," Dr. Seo corrected gently. "And that is why you lost, Admiral. You saw our capacity for love and mistook it for weakness. You didn't understand that a species capable of this level of emotional connection will fight with proportional intensity to protect it." She activated another recording. This one showed Daeun Kim, the female who had operated mining lasers with deadly precision during the battle. But now she was back in her garden, tending plants while tears rolled down her cheeks. "Daeun lost her sister during the evacuation," Dr. Seo explained. "Her sister was a teacher who stayed behind to make sure all the children reached the transport ship safely. She died when your forces targeted the evacuation route. We were trying to prevent enemy reinforcements," Thexvar said automatically. "You were killing teachers and children," Dr. Seo replied. "And that is why every adult human in those colonies fought like a professional soldier. You had threatened the most important thing in their universe, their families." The recordings continued. Funeral services where humans spoke about the people they had lost. Boram Lee talking about her friend who had died defending the mining station's reactor. Su Jin Yang reading names of communication specialists who had stayed at their posts until the end. Captain Insu Park standing beside the grave of his younger brother Hyunwoo, who had died in the final orbital bombardment when he refused to evacuate the colony command center. "Your brother's colony administrator died," Thexvar asked. Along with 47 other people who stayed behind to coordinate the final evacuation, Dr. Seo confirmed, Captain Park requested permission to conduct orbital fire missions on his own family's home to prevent your forces from capturing it intact. His request was approved. Thexavar felt something cold settle in his stomach. The humans had been willing to destroy their own homes rather than let them fall into enemy hands. This is what you failed to understand about humanity, Dr. Seo continued. We are not peaceful because we are weak. We are peaceful because we choose to be peaceful. That choice can be revoked. She showed him new recordings, images of human space in the months following the battle. Instead of celebrating their victory, humans had used the time to build monuments to their dead and to strengthen their defenses. Every human colony now had memorial gardens where the names of the dead were carved in stone. But beside these gardens were new military installations, training facilities, and weapons manufacturing plants. We have learned from this experience, Dr. Seo explained. Your invasion taught us that our peaceful nature might be interpreted as weakness by other species. We have taken steps to ensure this misunderstanding does not happen again. The screen showed new classes being held in human schools, children learning about defensive tactics alongside mathematics and literature, adults practicing combat skills during their regular work schedules. The entire human population had become a trained militia, ready to defend their homes at a moment's notice. Admiral, Dr. Seo said, leaning forward in her chair, you and 11 other Velkari survived the battle. Out of 3 full battle groups, 12 individuals escaped destruction. Do you understand what message this sends? Thexavar did understand, and the knowledge terrified him. You are being returned to Velkari space tomorrow, Dr. Seo continued, along with complete records of this conversation, detailed analyses of human military capabilities, and psychological profiles explaining why we fight the way we do. This information will be shared with your government and with any other species they choose to inform. She stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth. We want the galaxy to know exactly what happens when someone threatens human families. We want every species to understand that our gentleness is a choice, not a weakness. Thexavar looked at the data pad she had left behind. It contained thousands of pages of information about human society, military doctrine, and psychological profiles. At the top of the first page was a simple statement: humanity, peaceful by choice, deadly by necessity. Dr. Seo, he said quietly, why are you releasing me? Why not execute me as a war criminal? She turned from the window and smiled at him with the same gentle expression she had shown throughout their months of meetings. Because you are going to deliver a message for us, Admiral. You are going to tell the galaxy that humans are exactly as dangerous as they need to be to protect what they love. The next day, Admiral Thexavar and his 11 surviving crew members were loaded onto a specially designed transport ship and sent back to Velkari space. The ship's computers contained detailed recordings of the battle, analyses of human combat tactics, and psychological studies explaining human behavior. When they arrived at the Velkari homeworld, their testimony changed everything. The Empire's expansion plans were immediately revised to avoid human space entirely. The information was shared with other spacefaring species, creating an informal agreement that human territory was off-limits to aggressive expansion. In the Galactic Council chambers, a new warning appeared on the star charts marking human space. Written in 47 different languages, the message was simple: here be humans, peaceful until threatened, approach with respect or not at all. Below the warning, in smaller text, was a memorial. In memory of the 847 Terran civilians and military personnel who died defending their homes during the Velkari incursion. They died protecting what they loved. We honor them by ensuring it never happens again. And in human space, life returned to normal. Hyunwoo Park's daughter learned to tend the garden her father had planted. Daeun Kim's vegetables grew in soil fertilized with the ashes of those who had died defending them. Children played in memorial parks built where battles had been fought. But now, when aliens observed human colonies, they saw the warning signs they had missed before. The gentle teachers who also knew military tactics. The caring parents who could switch to deadly efficiency in moments. The peaceful communities that could become coordinated military units when threatened. The galaxy had learned that humans were cute, until they weren't. And by the time you realized they weren't, it was already too late.